Sarah was sitting alone in her small apartment when her phone rang. On the other end was her aunt's voice, trembling. "Sarah, honey, your dad is gone." The cup slipped from Sarah's hand and shattered on the floor. Just 3 months ago she had visited her father, and now he was gone. She booked a flight immediately and headed toward her childhood home, the place where she had lived both the most beautiful and the most painful moments of her life. When she arrived, the door was already open. Inside, her older sister Emma was already there, and every room in the house seemed to be under her control, as if she'd been preparing for this. Emma looked at Sarah, but there was no grief on her face, only a cold, calculating smile that shook Sarah to her core. "You came," Emma said, as if Sarah were a guest, not a daughter of the house. Sarah tried to go into her father's room, but the door was locked. "The lawyer said no one should go in," Emma said, her voice carrying an unfamiliar authority. Sarah couldn't understand why her own sister suddenly felt like a stranger. She spent the night in the guest room, thinking that the next day, when the will was read, everything would finally become clear. The next morning, the entire family gathered at the lawyer's office. Sarah's uncle, another relative, and a few old family friends were also present. The lawyer, Mr. Whitfield, opened his file and began reading the will. With every word, Sarah's heart sank further. The house, the savings accounts, the family business, everything had been left to Emma. Sarah received only a small, old wooden box that had once belonged to her grandfather. Quiet laughter rippled through the room. Her aunt muttered under her breath, "Dad knew you'd never amount to anything, that's why he didn't leave you anything." Emma lowered her eyes, but a faint smile crept onto her lips that she couldn't quite hide. Sarah stayed silent. She picked up her box and walked out of the office without a word, 1,000 questions swirling in her heart. Back home, Sarah began packing her things, but there was a strange restlessness inside her. Something wasn't right. Her father always used to say, "The most valuable things never show themselves on the surface." These words suddenly echoed in her mind, and she decided to look through that old box again. At 11 o'clock at night, Sarah sat alone in the guest room. She carefully opened the box. Inside were old letters, some black and white photographs, and a leather diary written in her father's handwriting. She opened the diary and began to read. The very first page shocked her. "If you're reading this, Sarah, it means I'm gone, and you've found the thing I kept only for you." The diary revealed that years ago her father had quietly started a small investment business, completely in secret, without telling anyone. Not Emma, not anyone else. This business was registered only in Sarah's name, because her father knew that Emma's greed and selfishness would one day tear the whole family apart. On the last pages of the diary was written a lawyer's name and address, Mr. Daniel Reyes, a small office downtown. Sarah's breath caught. Tears began streaming down her face, but these weren't tears of sorrow, they were tears of strange hope and astonishment. Her father hadn't forgotten her. She stayed up all night, reading the diary over and over, feeling her father's love and wisdom in every single line. The next morning, Sarah went straight to Mr. Reyes's office. When she gave her name, instead of surprise, a knowing smile appeared on the lawyer's face. "We've been expecting you for quite some time," he said. Reyes explained that Sarah's father had created a second, older, and legally stronger will, one that would only activate if the family ever mistreated Sarah or tried to deprive her of her rightful share. This will wasn't just about property. It included her father's entire secret business, a small but fast-growing investment firm, registered in Sarah's name, whose value far exceeded the house and all the other assets combined. Reyes explained that within the past 24 hours, the moment Emma tried to transfer the house and other assets into her own name, this second will had automatically and legally activated, exactly as her father had planned all along. Sarah sat in silence for a long moment, unsure whether to feel joy or grief. Her father, who had always seemed like a quiet, simple man, had actually been planning this for years, solely to protect his younger daughter. Reyes placed the papers in front of Sarah. "Now all that's needed is your signature," he said. A week later, the whole family gathered again, this time at a meeting called by Sarah herself. Emma arrived confidently, assuming Sarah was there to apologize. But when Sarah laid the documents on the table and revealed the truth, Emma's face turned completely pale. The house, the family business, everything had legally returned to Sarah's name, all because Emma had betrayed her own sister. Silence fell over the room. The aunt, who used to mock Sarah, now sat with her eyes lowered. Emma finally apologized through tears, but there was no anger in Sarah's heart, only a deep sense of peace. She said, "I'm not angry with you, Emma. I just wanted to show that the truth can't stay hidden forever, no matter how long it takes." Months later, Sarah took her father's business to new heights with fresh passion, turning his dreams into reality. She became a successful entrepreneur. Emma slowly began rebuilding her own life, and over time, the two sisters found their way into a new kind of relationship. One built on respect and understanding, not greed. In the end, Sarah realized that the true inheritance was never money, but her father's love and wisdom. 5 years passed, and the company that had once been a quiet secret in a leather diary had become one of the most respected investment firms in the region. Sarah, now in her mid-30s, stood in the lobby of the newly expanded headquarters, watching as workers hung a bronze plaque near the entrance. It read simply, "Founded on patience, built on trust." Her father's name was engraved beneath it, along with the date he had first opened the tiny office no one had known about. Emma had grown into her role as Chief Operations Manager, overseeing 3 regional branches and mentoring a team of young employees the way Sarah had once mentored her. The two sisters rarely needed to explain themselves to each other anymore. They had developed an unspoken rhythm, a shared language built from years of rebuilding what had once been broken. Their relationship wasn't perfect, but it was honest, and to both of them, that mattered more than perfection ever could. On a quiet Sunday afternoon, Sarah received an unexpected letter in the mail. It was from a law firm she didn't recognize, informing her that a distant cousin of her father's, someone neither sister had ever met, had recently passed away and left behind a small collection of personal items addressed specifically to the daughters of a man who never stopped believing in family. Curious and slightly unsettled, Sarah called Emma immediately, and within the hour, the two sisters sat together at Sarah's kitchen table, opening a modest wooden crate. Inside were more old letters, this time written between their father and his cousin decades earlier, long before either sister was born. The letters revealed a side of their father neither of them had ever known, a young man who had once lost everything in a failed business partnership, who had rebuilt his life slowly, painfully, and quietly, promising himself that if he ever had children, he would teach them the value of patience over shortcuts and character over convenience. One letter, dated years before Sarah's birth, contained a single line that made both sisters go still. "One day, I hope my daughters will understand that the greatest inheritance isn't what you leave behind, but who you become because of it." Emma read the line twice, her hands trembling slightly. "He was talking about us before we even existed," she whispered. Sarah nodded, unable to find words strong enough for the moment. It was strange, she thought, how a man who had passed away years ago could still find new ways to speak to them, as though his voice had never truly left the family at all. That evening, the sisters decided to do something they had never done before. They visited their father's grave together, without any prompting, without any occasion to mark. Sarah brought a single white rose, the same kind her father used to grow in the backyard when they were children. Emma brought nothing but her presence, which, after everything, felt like enough. They stood there in silence as the sun began to set behind the old cemetery trees, two sisters who had once been divided by greed and misunderstanding, now standing together, finally at peace. As they walked back to the car, Emma broke the silence. "Do you think there's more out there? More letters, more secrets?" Sarah smiled faintly, looking up at the darkening sky. "Maybe. But I think we already found the most important one." For the first time in years, neither sister felt the need to say anything else. The story that had once been about betrayal and inheritance had quietly transformed into something neither of them had expected. A story about family, finally whole again.